nucleic acids. But before we can talk about that, we need to go back and do a couple of definitions. So first, organic. An organic compound is something that contains carbon. You may remember that from chemistry class, that organic chemistry was the study of carbon-containing things. Biology books get a little more specific. They usually say that organic things contain not just carbon, but carbon and hydrogens. So a lot of biology books will say, for example, that carbon dioxide is not an organic compound because even though it contains carbon, it's a really simple compound and it doesn't contain hydrogen. The other thing that you should know, and then we'll go back to the structure of carbon, is the meaning of organic. It means from life, because when organic compounds were originally discovered, it was thought that they were only things that were found in or produced by living things. Like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, even oils that are fossil fuels, gasoline, things, they're organic, they're extracted from living things. We now know a lot of organic compounds can be made artificially. A lot of drugs contain carbon. Plastics contain carbon. Teflon coatings on pans contain carbon. There's a lot of carbon compounds that we can artificially make, but the name still stands. And when you see the term organic in like a grocery store, they're not really referring to it containing carbon. They're referring to it being natural. They're going with that from life thing, that organic compounds or organic products in a grocery store don't have any genetic modifications. If they're organic vegetables, they were never treated with pesticides, stuff like that. So the simplest organic compounds are hydrocarbons, which contain nothing but carbon and hydrogen. And the simplest hydrocarbon would actually be, this is actually called methane, but CH4. In other words, a carbon with 4 hydrogens attached to it would be the simplest of all the organic compounds that you could get. It would just be a simple carbon and hydrogen. The ones we'll be talking about will be more complicated than that, but that's the base for all organic compounds. They all have what we call a carbon-hydrogen backbone. So as they get bigger, I'll show you a couple of examples here. So if we were to look at some of these bigger ones, you would still have a carbon backbone. So if I look here, sometimes the way this one is written, it's written like in the order that you find them. So you see how there's CH3 because right here there's a CH3, then CH2, then another CH2, and then it ends with a CH3. You would not be asked on a test to draw this in any way. Yes?
So then what's the formula for the right?
No, I'm going to give you that. Here's the backbone they're talking about. So it's sort of a chain of carbons. Now, yeah, these, and the other way that you could write these would be, this could be written as C4H10. That's the way you're probably more used to looking at it in chemistry, where they combine all the carbons and all the hydrogens, and they give you a final formula. Technically, there is a general formula for all chains of carbon, which I think is what you just asked me about, and that is CnH2n plus 2. For just a simple, straight carbon backbone chain that's all single bonds, that would be your formula. And you actually won't be tested on that either. I will not give you what's the formula for, and I give you the number of carbons and ask you to tell me the formula. So, for example, octane, which is what's found in gasoline, would be C8. How many H's? So 2n plus 2. So 8 times 2 is 16 plus 2, 18. So that would be the formula for octane. Again, you will not be tested on, you will not have to draw these, draw a chain, and you won't have to tell me the formula for a carbon chain. And then the last thing here is that carbon always makes 4 bonds. There might be double bonds. It might not be 4 single bonds. But if I pick any carbon, for example, in this chain, I see that it's got 4 bonds. I could also draw this one, which is connected to hydrogens. And even though there's a triple bond here, there's a total of, you're welcome, 4 bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4. So carbon, no matter what you see it as a part of, it will always make bonds to 4 things. All right, and as I promised, this is basically where we're going to stop. That's all you need to know for today. Is just a brief introduction. I will show you on this next slide. This is just a picture of some of the ways carbon can form. We talked about things having carbon backbones. So they can be straight chains, they can be branched chains, and carbon can also fold back on itself and make carbon rings. So those are just some of the ways that we see carbon behave. So tomorrow we're going to talk about functional groups, the things that attach to the carbons to give it unique properties.